Okay.
All right. Welcome to the Side Action, episode 95, episode 26 of season 3. My name is Jim Weglars, aka Wegs. You can follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and Instagram.
And this is Steve Roberts, aka Action. You can follow me on Twitter at 31sroberts.
Follow the podcast at Side Action Pod on Twitter and then also on YouTube. So, Action, what's going on besides the COVID hair? This guy's got some serious COVID hair, America, if you're watching on YouTube. So it's coming in real nice.
It is. I still staying away from the barbers here, but we did travel to Florida, and I found out that long hair is very hot in the Florida sun. So.
Yes, it is.
I should have known.
You should have known. You should have known, but I'm sure you were looking good, rocking it. You still got the beard going too. So I'm probably gonna get a little ears lowered, as they say, before we go to Vegas. So I'm getting ready, getting a little shaggy, but it's all good. It's all good. So and how was Florida?
It was fantastic. The weather turned really nice the day before we arrived, and it was upper 70s to low 80s and sunny. Every day we were there. It was a long weekend, nice getaway. We hit the beach for a couple of afternoons and went on a boat ride down the Intercoastal near Siesta Key. So it was a fantastic trip. How was your weekend?
Well, it was a beautiful weekend here in Chicago. Saturday was very nice, probably around 50-ish. Very nice. I hung out with Prime.
Nice.
He had Artemis Prime he actually made it out of the office, and he showed up at the Four Shadows with me. I ended up having kind of a wild night Saturday. Went to Louis' Pub for some karaoke. They've gone to 40% capacity. I'm pretty sure Louis was a little higher than that, but had a great time. As you know, my friend is supposedly going off to Kenya at some point. Kind of a little going away thing for her, and we had a good time busting out some tunes. Hit some Kryptonite. I wasn't a huge fan of the song, but I rose to the occasion and made it happen. So a couple of late nights last week, including Thursday, actually, post podcast, I was up till I think 3 a.m. on Thursday night, and about 4 a.m. on Saturday night. That's what happens when I have fun with their friends. So I was pretty much toast on Sunday, but hey, we'll talk about this in a minute. We destroyed college basketball. It was so exciting to see all of our picks coming in for the most part.
Yeah, it's funny how
exciting stuff.
When you don't watch, at least in my case, you tend to win more. So it seems a little backwards, but that's all right. We'll take it any way they come.
Well, let's talk about hoops, college hoops, and it's a smaller slate this week, except, smaller and larger in some ways. Smaller main slate, a lot of conference tournament games. So let's jump into the Action Index first, and I don't know if there's anything exciting on this. I didn't get to review in detail, but I can see the top dogs are still up there despite, we'll talk about this in a minute. Baylor did lose, but Michigan lost, but I see Illinois jumped Michigan, which kind of makes sense. They beat them down the other night.
Yeah, beat them handily. Actually, I ran this earlier in the week, and I think it was on Tuesday morning before that game. Okay. And Michigan was ahead of Baylor in the second spot. And then today I ran it again with the latest data. And, of course, they dropped after the very poor performance against Illinois on Tuesday night, even without Ayo.
I know. They've won a couple games with Ayo DeSumno. He's a Simeon guy from Chicago. So that bodes well for them. I also see Houston is really right there with those big boys in the top. You got Gonzaga, as we've talked about before. They're at like 30.79 in the Action Index. And then you have a jump down to the 24, 23 range. And you've got that kind of glutted teams with Baylor, Illinois, Michigan, and Houston. So Houston's at one of those teams I'm kind of excited about, but they're getting a little too much pub for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, their offense doesn't really stack up with some of these teams near the top, but they do play some pretty serious defense, which is always a good recipe in March. Yep. And, the other thing that we haven't really touched on, and I was texting with a buddy over the weekend, is Gonzaga's chances in the NCAA tournament. I mean, these numbers blow you away, clearly. 6 points better than the number 2 place team. And I think even Ken Pom has them up there. But the question is really who have they played and whether or not they're ready for 6 tough games in March.
Right. We kind of talked about this at the bar. I talked to one of the guys. He may meet us in Vegas. his name's Mike, met him at the Four Shadows, but he took a bet where it was basically, I think it was Baylor and the Zags and everybody else. But I was kind of thinking more, which of those two teams is going to fall off? And before the Illinois game, I thought, well, I'd rather take Michigan and Baylor than the Zags, just because the Zags have never done it. Neither is Baylor. But the Zags have never done it, and they've been in this spot before. And then like you said, the schedule, you look at these teams, besides Houston, I mean, almost all these teams are playing in tougher conferences, and the Zags haven't played for 2 months. So we'll see. They'll play BYU likely next week, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But other than that, I haven't played anybody since probably early December, maybe.
Yeah, I think Iowa was the last real opponent that they had, based on my recollection. So it'll be interesting. I'm certainly going to be looking to fade them in my brackets and otherwise. Yeah. And I did see that prop posted too. I think some books were posting the field versus Baylor and Gonzaga at like minus 150.
Right.
I had considered laying that price to take the field against those two.
I mean, it seems to make sense, right? You got a better chance. I see that you extended this to 15 teams, and what do you see? Number 14, Purdue is in the list. I wonder if that's why it went down to 15.
I think so. Yeah, you caught me red-handed. I was dragging the little mouse, and I saw Purdue there, and was pleasantly surprised. But this team has been playing fantastic lately. And just the other night, Trevion Williams got into some foul trouble against Wisconsin. And Zach Edey, the big freshman out of Toronto, stepped up and played a dominant game against the Badgers. You would think that without Williams on the floor, that the Badgers may have had a little bit of advantage against them, but Edey just destroyed them. It was great to see.
Right. Well, they've been red hot, covering at a record clip. It'll be in my notes later, one of the games. So, and then the other game I just wanted to highlight was, Loyola played the Salukis back-to-back games and didn't cover either game, by the way. We were watching the game at the bar because I know that Ridgeway was watching it. And, I mean, they probably maybe should have lost. I mean, Southern had a really good shot to beat them. Now, the little aside is, for anybody who knows me and listens to us before, the kid who played great for the Salukis, he's an Evanston kid. He's the guy. And, Lance Jones, he played in our league that we used to coach in against us, unfortunately. But he's a hell of a player. And he had 30 points. He was lighting it up. And they only scored 58 in regulation. He had 30 points or something at that stage. So anyway, Loyola, as much as I love them and they're 13th in your rankings, are very high in KenPom, I'm worried about them scoring because they definitely can't score in the last 3 minutes of games, it seems like, lately. But I digress.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, I just wanted to kind of cover, like last week, more informationally about all these conference tournaments. I kind of missed one last week because it stepped up. It was supposed to be played on the 10th of March, but actually started technically last night, and that's the Atlantic 10. They started their current tournament a week early because of COVID concerns, I guess. But a slew of conference tournaments starting this week as early as tomorrow. We're taping, of course, today, March 4th on Thursday. I know you love the SoCon. SoCon's playing tomorrow, starting up tomorrow on March 5th, as is the Sun Belt. On Saturday, you start the Colonial, the CAA. The NEC also starts on Saturday, as well as the Summit League. And then Sunday, you have the MEAC. I know you love the MEAC. I'm surprised you haven't pulled a MEAC game out so far this year.
I got to be honest, I can't tell you who's in that league.
It's a traditionally, African-American schools like the HSBCs, right? Or HBCUs, I'm sorry, HBCUs, historically black colleges. That's a lot of those teams. And then a lot of the big boys start. So Big Sky starts on Monday on the 8th, and then some of the big boys, ACC, starts on Tuesday the 9th, as does your Big West on the 9th, and then Conference USA as well on Tuesday. And then the huge guys start up. Big 12, Big East, Big 10, SEC, and then, of course, we'll mix in a few others, the WAC, Southland, SWAC. They all start on Wednesday the 10th, and then the Mountain West is also on the 10th. And then the MAC and the AAC start a little later on Thursday, the 11th. So a lot of conference tourney action here. So are you excited about it?
I am, yeah. I'm a little bit anxious because it's now in this work from home environment. I have a nice TV here in my office, and it's probably going to be hard to focus on real work the next week or so with all these games on. Just kidding. But Not
They're not
really.
listening. They're not listening at the
It's going to be a wild week with basketball on night and day, seemingly.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's go over last week's picks. I already kind of tooted our own horn a little bit. If you go over all of our picks, we actually went 9-2, which is incredible. And we didn't get the number for West Virginia. If we got the +6, we would have covered, right? But I mean, these games. I mean, Michigan came through against Iowa. San Diego State beat Boise and covered at the -6. The ones we didn't make, UC Riverside, your Big West darling, lost to the first place Gauchos on Friday, and they obviously did cover that +4. I think it was less than that though, right?
Yeah, I think they actually lost by 4, but you graded it correctly because the number was, I think it opened at 3 and closed at like 2 or 2.5. So it was definitely a loss for me personally.
Right. Your Hoosiers did not come through against Michigan. They were on our card there. They covered the 5 against Indiana, and then Kansas. This was the big one. Kansas took out Baylor. I know you didn't want to follow me on this one. I was super excited about it. And this Kansas team, they kind of beat up Baylor pretty bad in that game. I mean, they won, going away more or less. They covered. It wasn't even +6. I think the number was closer to 4.
Yes,
Maybe.
correct. That's correct.
It was +4, but they, obviously won outright at home, and they won, obviously Baylor has some issues, but they, we'll talk about them in a second.
Yeah, definitely. And then Iowa, great pick on Sunday. I was a little leery about that one, but they came out. I mean, you could tell based on the line movement in that one. I think it went from like 4.5 down to 2 by game time on Sunday, and that told me everything I needed to know about the right side in that one. And sure enough, Garza came out and dominated in the first half.
He did, and then your under pick did hit there. Good job, Action. We talked about that last week. But this was the one that we didn't. Okay, technically, I graded it as a loss, but this was one of another great games of the year. West Virginia is playing in all these great games. They hosted Baylor, went to overtime. We're within the 4. It was +4 or 4.5, depends on where you close which shop. And they end up getting this tough beat, some kind of questionable calls there down the stretch, but Baylor ends up winning by 5 points in overtime. So the Mountaineers didn't cover, but they did what I expected them to do.
Yeah, this one caught me off guard. The early start, specifically, I turned it on about halftime and did catch the second half. And I got to say, West Virginia should have won that game going away. They had some boneheaded plays, and they couldn't really get Culver going at all. I think he finished with 8 points, which was very surprising to see that in the box score.
Right. Well, the thing in these two games, in the Baylor games, both against Kansas and West Virginia, and you see it in KenPom, their defense isn't quite the same right now. They're not as connected as they were prior to, whereas Michigan, when they came back from COVID, they've been playing great defense except against Illinois. And so you see them drop to I think they're 21st now in the defensive efficiency numbers, which when they were in the top 5 or top 10 just, a couple weeks ago. There's Illinois. I talked about them. I know it was a little bit of a homer pick on my part, but they came out guns a-blazing without Io and really just took it to Michigan. This wasn't a game at all. I mean, they were down by 20 right from the jump, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but Michigan struggled to score against this Illinois team.
Yeah, just a no-show by the Wolverines. I think that's really the only way to describe it. I was interested in watching that Coburn versus Dickinson matchup, and Kofi Coburn put it on Hunter Dickinson the other night. That was a great performance by him and the Illini.
Well, I wonder because obviously they've had a compressed schedule. They've had to play so many games to make up those lost games. Maybe this was just kind of the third, kind of like in the NBA, like a back-to-back situation. They played on Thursday. They played on, was it Saturday when they played Indiana or Sunday?
Yep, it was Saturday.
And then they're going back on Tuesday. So maybe look for that. Obviously, the tournament is coming, the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, and currently playing on Thursday against Michigan State. So incredible schedule for these kids.
Yeah, they're just getting crushed. Your Purdue, your Boiler up. They obviously took out Wisconsin, rather easily in that game. They were 1-point favorite and they covered easily. And then the last one was last night. Super excited about it, not excited about the result on the injury, but Villanova came out kind of what I expected. They kind of flexed their muscles in the Big East. They won now, I think, the Big East every single time in this new Big East. They were a 4-point favorite going in, and I mean they won they were crushing Creighton all game. I mean, it was one of those things that I think their defense actually stepped up for once, and that's something we could talk about maybe more in the tournament preview. But your guy Connor Gillespie, he went out. I don't know if it was an ankle. Was the issue?
I read knee injury, and I
Okay.
didn't see the interview, but I've been reading all over Twitter that coach after the game during the interview said that it was a serious knee injury. So that leads me to think it's probably an ACL. If they had the news that quickly, they did the test,
Yeah.
as you and I both know very well. And I'm
Yes.
sure it's likely to be an ACL, and he'll be out for the tournament.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's kind of a bummer, but they were playing great, and they did get us another cover. So good job, Action. We did it. We did it. We had another great week.
Yeah. And, to tail on that, I think the pick, I was going to be looking for Connecticut anyways to win this tournament. And now with the injury to Colin Gillespie, I think that Connecticut is a great pick at plus 400.
Right.
Bet it earlier today. I think it was DraftKings or FanDuel. FanDuel had the plus 400. And really the only other competitor in my mind without Gillespie is going to be Creighton. And
Gotcha.
I think with James Bouknight back in the lineup for Connecticut, they're going to be really hard to beat in this Big East tournament. And they're playing great ball right now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What I would say is that I watched UConn last night. I watched them play Seton Hall, and they looked really good. So I think you're right. They have a player. Did you say this guy's name? Boatwright? Is that his name?
Bouknight.
Boatnight. He was really good, and I guess they played differently since he come back. So, they're a team to watch both in that tournament and in the dance. So,
Definitely.
give me 1 second here. So anyway, let's go over some games of interest here. Obviously, this week it's a limited slate. I wasn't sure if you had any Friday night action because, oh, okay, afternoon. You got some Friday afternoon action.
That's
It does
right.
count. It does count action. Of course it does.
Yeah, I had to find something. And a lot of these games tomorrow, not a lot, but most of them are tournament games. And I did see that Massachusetts put a pretty good whipping on St. Joseph's today. And tomorrow they're going to be going into the quarterfinals, I'm guessing, of the A10 tournament against St. Louis. And St. Louis is a team that I've been eyeballing quite a bit since they returned from their own COVID break. And tomorrow I'm going to be playing the Billikens -6 against Massachusetts. Just the other night on Monday, they beat the same UMass team by 21 points. And
Right.
Although this is not an actual spread yet, I just took that projection from Ken Palm. If it opens anywhere near 6, I'm going to lay it with the Billikens.
Okay. Yeah, they haven't been playing well. We talked about their up and down season, but UMass isn't that good. So that's what I will say. I would be wary of them against other teams in the A10. But yeah, maybe in that game I can go with you. You also have looks like it's not used to be Arch Madness. Now it's the Missouri Valley. I don't know where they're playing it this year. It looks like you got another game, Indiana State against Evansville.
Yeah, you're spot on. It is under the arch in St. Louis again this season at the arena there downtown. So neutral court venue, as well as the last game, the A10 tournament's being played in Virginia. So neutral court in that one as well. But I'm going to be looking to back Indiana State and the Trees, as my dad's buddy likes to call them.
Trees, the Sycamores.
Yep. The Trees are laying 5 tomorrow. This is an actual spread. And Indiana State just recently dusted off Evansville twice. They're 2-0 straight up and against the spread versus the Purple Aces. And those were in different venues. They played a home and away, which was a little bit different for the NBC this season. And they won by 6 on the road at Evansville and then just pasted Evansville by 14 at home. So laying 5 tomorrow in the tournament. This is another afternoon game. I like the Trees and Indiana State.
The Trees against the Aces. I gotcha. Can't really speak to this game action. Haven't paid attention to either of these teams, so I will trust you with the Trees here, -5. Now these teams are just at the lower end of the tourney, and this is, we'll see if they can upset some of the big boys. Evansville did beat Loyola early this year, right?
I don't recall that one. I think they lost 2 games. They might have covered against Loyola, but I don't think they beat them.
Maybe it was. Did they? Maybe it was a different year that they beat Kentucky. Didn't Evansville beat a good team? I thought they beat a good team. Maybe I'm off. So
Yeah, it was a couple of years back, I believe, with the former coach who was ousted sometime after that for nefarious acts with
right.
co-eds.
Well, anyway, let's go on to some big games. And obviously, I was already cued into your mindset. You know, Purdue is playing some great basketball. I mean, I've said
Mhm.
they're quietly destroying the Big Ten. They're up to 14 Ken Palm, and obviously in your standing, they've covered 6 of the last 7, and they're playing Indiana, who's going the other way. Now, Indiana really, I think, has got to win some games to get in the tournament. They play Saturday at 1 p.m. Central. Can you get behind me with Purdue?
Yeah, I think that this is a good pick. Laying 6 certainly seems about right for these two teams. And I mean, you mentioned it. Indiana is just going downward and going downward very quickly. I think that they have lost probably and nearly the same amount. 6 of the last 7 seems about right for them as well. And more importantly, they have not been able to beat Purdue in the last several seasons. I think they've lost 4 in a row against Purdue, and Archie Miller has failed to cover against Purdue in every time out in his career. So I think you're spot on here with the Boilers.
I gotcha. Exciting. We're on the same side. Okay, so this is West Virginia against Oklahoma State on Saturday, again, 1 o'clock Central. I love the Mountaineers. I mean, this is, I love Huggins and all that stuff, but Oklahoma State has been balling, so I'm a little bit scared of them. I still would go West Virginia at home minus the 5, but curious to hear what you have to say.
I'm going to be looking on the other side of this one. Cade Cunningham, the superstar freshman, is the presumed number 1 pick in the NBA draft this year, and it's for good reason. He has been playing absolutely lights out lately. He went off the other night against Oklahoma, and I think that he is going to be tough for this West Virginia defense to cover in this
Okay.
game. This is not your standard Mountaineer defense, and I expect Cunningham will be able to keep it close.
Okay. So 5 is probably too big for you for West Virginia to go on the Oklahoma
Mm-hmm.
State side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, another one of these big, amazing matchups in the Big Ten that happen every week, every day. It seems like Illinois is going to Ohio State. This is Saturday at 3 o'clock Central. I mean, Illinois, obviously, I've been all over them. It was a big win on the road at Michigan. I don't love it. Obviously, they're showing Illinois as a 1-point favorite at Ohio State, so maybe I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
like that. I thought they'd be an underdog. If Io plays, I'm definitely on it. Don't feel great if he doesn't, but what do you think about Kofi Coburn against EJ Liddell?
Yeah, I like Illinois in this spot too, going on the road against Ohio State. Certainly seems like Ohio State is going to have the motivation after a couple of down games. They'll be looking to bounce back in this one. But regardless, IO in or IO out, I think Illinois is a strong play here.
Right,
Coburn on the inside is going to be tough for those Buckeyes to slow down.
right. Gotcha. This next game is a little bit of a departure, and it's against what I just said about Houston, but Memphis is actually playing good basketball. They are hosting Houston on Sunday, the 7th at 11 a.m. Central. Houston is obviously the quote-unquote best team here, but Memphis is fighting for their tournament lives. They really got to win a big game. This home game would be big. Getting 11 points at home. This defense is really good too for Memphis. Number 1,
Mm-hmm.
according to Ken Palm. The only problem is they can't score. So, can you get on board with me with the Memphis Tigers?
Yeah, I think you're looking at the right side here. These two teams are stellar on the defensive end, and I would project the total to be incredibly low. Ken Palm showing 131, kind of surprising, actually. Maybe looking at an under in this game, but lower scoring game, and if it really comes out at 11 points, then I think that you certainly would have some value on Memphis in the underdog role there. They can play some good defense as well as Houston, and would think it'll be lower scoring.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. A couple more games on Sunday. We've got Baylor is playing Texas Tech, this time at home. This is 3 o'clock at 3 o'clock Central on Sunday. Baylor hasn't been playing great. They obviously beat West Virginia, and that's, a tough game. They lost to Kansas. But I don't know about this Texas Tech team. They're not really playing as good as I usually expect them to play for Chris Beard's team. They haven't gelled like I thought. They've
Mm-hmm.
only covered 3 out of their last 8 games from my totals. So I would go Baylor here. I mean, -9 is a big number. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I would lean to that side too. I personally make this number 9 exactly. So probably going to be a pass for me.
Okay.
But I was impressed that the way Jared Butler played the other night against West Virginia. He's their go-to scorer, and they're certainly going to be reliant on him going into the postseason. And I'm not very certain that Texas Tech will be able to stop him, if at all. So in that case, I do think that Baylor is probably the lean.
Okay. The last one I had on the list, you got another, or maybe you put this one on here. I can't remember. Iowa's playing Wisconsin. This is at Iowa. This is again Sunday at an early, you got 12:37 a.m. Probably that's Eastern time. Sorry, my bad. That's a really random time, right? 12:37 is the exact time.
Mm-hmm. Set your alarm.
That's the tip off. So you obviously, the Badgers have just not been getting it done. I'm assuming you're going Iowa here?
Yeah, definitely. This is a really bad matchup for Wisconsin against Iowa. And Luka Garza is just going to destroy Reavers and Potter on the inside. And
Right.
I think Iowa has been playing extremely good ball as of late. They did lose Eric Nungy, though, one of their backup interior guys, which certainly not going to bode well for them going into the postseason long-term wise. But Wisconsin is a team that is going downward, and I'll be looking to fade them again.
Yeah, me too. I'd fade them both the Big Ten tournament and in the big tournament. The last one you listed is, well, they're playing tonight, so we'll see what the results are. But Michigan State is playing Michigan. This is at East Lansing, so I guess tonight they're playing in Chrysler Arena or in
Correct. Yep.
So you're doing a little zigzag thing here, and you're right. I think Michigan State getting the 9 points seems like a good side here, but it's weird. This team obviously was on a roll, and they're still technically in both. I think both Ken Palm and I'm not Ken Palm, Jerry Palm and Lenardi have him in the dance, which I'm a little surprised by that, but that would be a big win that they need.
Yeah. They've rattled off a couple of big wins in a row,
Mm-hmm.
starting with Indiana, if you could call that a big win, and recently did drop one at Maryland, though, which I think was a setback for them. But they beat Indiana again at home the other night, and now they play these back-to-back games against Michigan. And I'm predicting that Michigan is going to come out victorious tonight. They're up 6, 5 minutes left in the first half currently.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for Sparty to come back on Sunday, which is really going to be the game of their season to date against Michigan. If they can notch a victory in that one, they surely can cash their ticket to the big dance. And
Beating three top 10 teams or three top 5 teams is going to get them there. So especially in the last 2 weeks, but we'll see how that shakes out. I just wanted to talk about some other conference, tournaments. Obviously we talked about the ones starting up over the next week, but a lot of them, the finals are, going to be punching tickets over the next few days until we tape again next week. So I was just kind of, eyeballing any of these that you like. Ohio Valley's punching on Saturday. You've got Big South on Sunday, as well as the Atlantic Sun, which is, your guys should be in there, Bellarmine. And then you've got the Missouri Valley on Sunday. That should be a great game. Drake Loyola, Sunbelt and SoCon on Monday, the CAA and the NEC, which are really small conferences, on Tuesday, as well as the Horizon and the Summit and West Coast conferences, that should be a good game, BYU and the Zags. I didn't put the American East, so I guess that's coming next week. So are any of these tournaments interesting to you?
Yeah, I think that certainly Bellarmine, the Atlantic Sun final, I'll be looking to watch that one, although I did bet against Bellarmine tonight with Stetson as an underdog. But I think another rematch of Drake and Loyola will certainly have my interest to see who can get the rubber match in that game. And looking on down, I do like Texas State in the Sun Belt. And I think that there's another one that caught my eye. Cleveland State now in the Horizon League certainly looks like a surefire winner. They got a huge scare in round 1 or quarters against IPFW and somehow emerged victorious in triple overtime. And the number 2 seed, their only real competitor, Wright State, lost in the opening round. So I think Cleveland State's going to be the victor there. How about you? Anything catch your eye?
Well, I really want to see the BYU, Gonzaga matchup. That's obviously going to be Tuesday night. It's not official. They both have to win semifinal matchups, but it's probably pretty likely that they've been, bye to the semifinals. They just got to win one game to get to the title game. So I'm excited to see the Zags play somebody decent. And I know they've played BYU before, but this is a different stage. BYU's a good team. They're top 23 in KenPom. They play decent defense, top 50, but they're a really good offensive team. So I'd expect the Zags to win, but the Zags, I mean, they haven't been covered. I mean, obviously they the 18, 25 point favorites, right? In most games. So it's hard to cover all those numbers, but this should be a competitive game. And so I'm excited about that one. I want to see some of these other teams play. I want to see, Texas State has gotten some shine because they've been playing really well. You talked about Drake Loyola. I want to see UNC Greensboro play, and the SoCon. SoCon traditionally has very good teams for the tournament. Yep. East Tennessee State comes to mind. They've got other teams. Wofford has won games, and Wofford's actually, that could be a really good game if they get to the title game. UNC Greensboro against Wofford. Those are two of the top teams in the SoCon. And I always get excited about the first ticket, right? So I always watch the Ohio Valley because they're the first ones on Saturday. Belmont should run away with it, but you never know. So.
Yeah, another team that's not on here, and I forget the name of the conference, but Siena team. I think it's a Northeast Conference or something like that.
MAAC, so it's the MAC.
There you go.
Metro Atlantic Athletic.
Siena ends up winning that tournament. They're going to be a very tough foe for any of the big Power 5 schools in the opening round. I'll be looking for that matchup as well.
Nice. Okay, well, let's talk about the next couple of weeks so we're just on the same page and for our listeners. So first of all, next week, obviously the big conference tournaments, as we kind of laid out, will already have tipped off. So we'll be talking about those tournaments. But we'll also maybe do a little kind of early tournament, big dance preview, as Selection Sunday is the Sunday after that, the 14th. We have Cola, our buddy, coming on next week to talk about his new venture and also to give his insights for the NCAA tournament. So that's awesome. Yep. And then the following week we'll be in Vegas, as we've discussed. So we'll start on the 17th through the 20th for Action and I. But we also have, and I want to make a correction, it's BP, not DP. And it's kind of confusing. I heard the Dan Patrick show in my head, but he actually has a twin. So his brother is DP. He's BP. It's Brandon. So anyway, we've got our group for Vegas, but we'll be taping. We discussed that we'll tape on that Thursday sometime to give you a preview for the tournament, the big tournament, which will start on Friday when we're at Circa.
Yeah, we have yet to pick out a spot, but we're staying at the Mirage. So perhaps we could find some sort of oasis, nice flamingos in the background. Oh, wait, that's the wrong hotel. We'll find some sort of animals or cool background to do our live hits.
Yeah, absolutely. And, maybe we'll just do some spots. I mean, we're so active on social media, Action and I, so maybe we'll have some little Instagram live spots or something. I don't know, over there at the pool or something. And I'm sorry, Prime has kind of promised, or he hasn't really followed through. And I know he listens to the podcast, so this is really a shout out to him to do something. He talked about going to some other pool, the Mirage, or some place has some adults only pool and some fancy place. I don't know. And then I guess we haven't figured out what we're doing on Saturday yet, right, for the sports book idea. But we're super excited for that trip. But generally speaking, in the next 2 weeks, we'll be covering all tournament all the time. And as I wrote in the Wegs Pool article, it is a little shifted schedule. I don't know if you looked at it, Action. Not only are they shifting the first weekend, but the second weekend shifted. So the games actually are, the Sweet 16 are Saturday, Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it Friday, Saturday? Yeah, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday for the Elite Eight games. So it gets back to normal when it's the Final Four, but the first 2 weekends are a little bit off.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely weird to have these games on different days than we're used to, but I'm sure it'll be just as mad.
Absolutely. Well, it'll be cool, too, for that second weekend, because if we tape on Thursday again, we'll actually be able to outline the matchups for Saturday and Sunday, which is nice. Usually it's kind of happening in real time, so it's hard to figure out who's going to play.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. All right, well, that wraps up our episode. Thanks for following us at Side Action Pod on Twitter and on YouTube. Follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and Instagram.
And follow me on Twitter at 31sroberts.
All right, everybody, enjoy these conference tournaments and get ready for your brackets. It's coming.
Yeah, good luck.